Hollywood panics as Disney announces new brutal layoffs. We were just talking about Paramount's layoffs. Disney's doing layoffs equal in size to Paramount, at least by the number of employees. And they're targeting their corporate staff this time. From Deadline, Disney layoffs underway, hundreds of corporate staffers impacted. They already laid off like 7,000 employees, and then on top of that, they laid off 140 employees from their Disney Entertainment Television division. Now they're laying off more corporate staff. The corporate staff are spread between different administrative offices, but these are not necessarily super high-level people, and they're not super low-level people. If you lay off 300 employees that work at Disney in these kinds of administrative positions, you're going to save anywhere from $30 to $100 million a year in expenses. Disney loves to manipulate their expenses, and a lot of companies do this. It's not just Disney. And they do have a very strong chief financial officer now, a guy who used to be CFO of Pepsi. By doing these targeted layoffs, they can cut their expenses and show a higher profit when it comes time to report their profits and losses. From Deadline, Disney layoffs underway, hundreds of corporate staffers impacted. More layoff news in what already has been a very depressing week. Disney is in the middle of a new wave of cuts as part of a cost-saving initiative. About 300 or so people were affected by the layoffs that started yesterday and are continuing today and tomorrow, with a possibility to stretch beyond that. The positions, all based in the United States, are across Disney's corporate operations, including legal, HR, and finance and communications. Among the divisions that are not impacted this round are theme parks, ESPN, as well as Disney Entertainment. Though they did just lay off a lot of people at Disney Entertainment. Quote, we continually evaluate ways to invest in our businesses and more effectively manage our resources and costs to fuel the state-of-the-art creativity and innovation that consumers value and expect from Disney. What a generic statement. I'm sure that makes the people getting laid off feel much better. Quote, as part of this ongoing optimization work, we've been reviewing the cost structure for our corporate level functions and have determined there are ways for them to operate more efficiently. This is the end of my statement as I've now been laid off. No, they didn't say that, but you can imagine that would be kind of funny. Today's cuts follow the July 31st round of layoffs at Disney Entertainment Television, when about 140 people will let go, representing about 2% of the total Disney Entertainment Television workforce. And Disney animation studio Pixar reduced staff by 14% in May. Pixar's layoff was massive, and when they announced it implying like, well, this is about Disney Plus. We're not doing as much content now, and we're not going to be doing shows for Disney Plus, so as a result, we have too much staff, we need to lay them off. In reality, a lot of the people they let go were people that worked on Inside Out 2, who didn't get the bonuses that they thought they would get for Inside Out 2, because that is how Disney normally operated, except that if you were not currently an employee of Disney at the time that Inside Out 2 was released, that meant you weren't going to get the bonus, even though you did work on it for months. They did get rid of many employees who were their woke employees, who were their troublemakers, who insisted that Disney push back on the so-called Don't Say Gay law in Florida that caused the massive problems with the state of Florida. Disney's layoffs started yesterday. On the same day, Paramount Global laid off hundreds in the second round of its own layoffs, aiming to cut 15% of that company's U.S. workforce, with Paramount Plus getting the brunt of the cuts. I can't imagine what it would be like to try to be working in Hollywood right now, trying to get an administrative job or a creative job or some executive position, when every couple of weeks, it seems like, they lay off another few hundred employees, competing with the existing work pool trying to already get work. This is not a good industry right now, except if you're Netflix. Then it's a good industry. Traditional media companies are going through tough times amid a soft market, despite the influx of spending on political ads and live sports, as pay TV continues to decline markedly and ad dollars are migrating to digital platforms. Legacy companies also have been trimming streaming costs as they're shifting focus to profitability for their platforms. In addition to Disney and Paramount's multiple rounds of staff reductions, Fox Entertainment eliminated about 30 positions through a restructuring in July. There were also layoffs at Warner Bros. Discovery in the same month. Disney's been in cost-cutting mode since Bob Iger returned as CEO in late 2022. The big first wave in 2023 eliminated roughly 7,000 jobs over multiple rounds, which represented about 3.2% of the company's total global workforce. One thing Disney has yet to do is any kind of massive consolidation of offices. They haven't said we're going to merge this major studio division, say Pixar, with Marvel. They haven't said they're going to take these cable channels that have this dedicated overhead and consolidate them in one major office. That's the kind of thing that Nelson Peltz wanted to do. That's the kind of thing Ike Perlmutter would have wanted them to do. That's why they were pushing to get on their board of directors, because if they can trim a little bit here and there, they could certainly afford to do some other massive consolidation. I don't know the operations of Disney inside and out. You just kind of see how they're described, especially from critical people that look at the company and say, and it's not just Nelson Peltz and Ike Perlmutter, other activist investors have said the same thing. The way they run their expenses is really way too high. So we haven't seen any massive consolidation at Disney yet. Ultimately, it's not something Bob Iger has ever wanted to do. It's not something he ever did. If he wanted to do it, he would have done it. No one's going to push him to do it right now. Bob Iger is leaving the company. When he retires in a little while, that'll be something for the next CEO to think about doing. And here are their television layoffs. From Deadline, Disney Entertainment Television lays off 140 employees, National Geographic heavily impacted. And why National Geographic? Well, because the structure of the overhead for something that's not generating enough revenue causes them to target National Geographic. I would have expected a lot more layoffs at their Freeform channel because Freeform lost charter, so it's losing distribution. If you have a cable channel with a lot of expense associated with it, even if some of your shows appear on other platforms like streaming services or even on ABC, just the same, if you're going to lose the cable revenue, you've got to have massive cutbacks to make up for that revenue. That's where ultimately consolidation, especially as cable continues to fall apart, Disney's going to be doing a lot of that consolidating of overhead because they have it built into their expenses. They can do that. Not this 300 people here, 300 people there, another 7,000 employees, something like that, maybe in 2025, if not 2025, 2026. Layoffs are underway at Disney Entertainment Television. Roughly 140 people are affected, representing about 2% of the total Disney Entertainment Television workforce. National Geographic is the hardest hit brand with about 60 layoffs, or some 13% of its staff, similar to Pixar. Other significantly impacted divisions include the ABC-owned television stations, Freeform, the operational side of the Disney Linear Entertainment Networks, unscripted, marketing, and publicity. No teams are being eliminated. Not surprisingly, Disney's linear networks are taking the brunt of the staffing cuts, particularly those that do not provide the company's streaming platforms with highly popular originals, such as FX's Shogun or ABC's Grey Anatomy, that drive viewership and subscriptions. The layoffs have been planned for months as part of a streaming strategy at Disney Entertainment Television, with department heads given targets to hit after a division-wide review. And when you're saying that you're going to give division heads targets, you're giving them targets of elimination of overhead. So you'd say, okay, look, we need 5% out of your overhead. You figure out how to do it. You're the division head. That is their responsibility, and they know their operation, and that's what they do. They just turn it in. If you don't cut those people, they will find somebody who will, and you will no longer be a division head. Almost half of the eliminated positions are in Burbank, where the Disney Studios is located, and the larger Los Angeles area. The rest are largely in New York, as well as Washington, D.C., where Nat Geo is headquartered. Disney Entertainment staff reductions follow a range of other cuts at Disney, which has been working toward a stated goal of at least $7.5 billion in cost reductions since the start of last year. In May, Pixar Animation Studios let go about 175 people, or 14% of the staff, as the animation outfit trimmed its plans for a big expansion at the Disney Plus series under Disney's new, more disciplined approach to streaming spending since Bob Iger returned as CEO in November 2022. And it's true, Bob Chapek did increase the amount of content Disney was producing across the board tremendously to try to boost the streaming service. Because if you just have content on the streaming service, the idea is, oh, people will just subscribe. Well, that idea didn't quite work out, so they had to have a lot of cutbacks as a result of that. At a Wall Street investor conference in May, Iger was asked about the company's strategy in operating linear networks in an era of pay TV decline. He said the company is aggregating greater audience while amortizing costs by running programming across multiple platforms in streaming, broadcast, and cable. Quote, "We're doing that across the board. Disney Channel, ABC, National Geographic, and it's working," he said. "Now we're going to continue to see erosion in terms of subs for those businesses, but we're going to actually continue to drive profitability because we're managing our costs so effectively. If they can produce shows and produce those shows, distribute them across multiple platforms, so broadcast ABC, the Disney Channel cable channel, one or more of their streaming services, they share the cost of producing the show across all those distribution platforms. This is why Disney will not sell ABC. They will not sell their cable channels. They don't want to sell anything because they can use the distribution to share their costs when they have production. So if it costs X to make a show, they can get back maybe 20% of X on one platform, 30% of X on another platform, 40% of X on another platform. And then it continues. And ultimately, with all that distribution, it can be profitable. Of course, they could just focus on making things people actually want to see, which they seem to be trying to get back to. Except for Lucasfilm, they're doing it with Pixar, they're doing it with Marvel. If they focus on what people actually want to see, and they honor their brands and respect their brands, and utilize their distribution options because they can show their shows in so many different places, they should do pretty well. But there's no knowing if they're ever going to do that, if they're going to stay focused, or if once one thing starts working, they're going to abuse their position again and produce ideological content that no one really wants to see, but it pushes an agenda. Once a leading brand of young adult programming with such hits as The Secret Life of the American Teenager and Pretty Little Liars, and more recently The Fosters and Grownish, Freeform, one of Disney's linear networks dropped by Spectrum, has pulled away from scripted series, which have been streaming on Hulu in favor of more moderately priced unscripted shows. The network already underwent significant cuts in the Disney Entertainment television layoffs last year. Meanwhile, this is the biggest reduction at Nat Geo, which followed a close examination of the network and its affiliated businesses' output. Like Freeform, Nat Geo has stepped away from scripted over the past year, with its nature-focused unscripted originals streaming on Disney+. Speaking at the May Investor Conference, Iger gave Dana Walden tremendous credit for managing Disney's traditional networks by reducing pretty dramatically our investment in content specifically aimed at those traditional networks, while at the same time investing in some and managing the traditional platforms' networks and the streaming platforms seamlessly. Last year, Disney eliminated 7,000 jobs over multiple rounds of layoffs that stretched from March to May as part of its cost-saving efforts. That led to the consolidation and elimination of a number of DET divisions, including production operations across Disney TV Studios, Hulu, Freeform, and FX being put under one executive, Freeform combining development and current, and ABC doing the same with drama development and current. 20th Digital Studio and Disney's TV Studios Creative Acquisitions Unit were dissolved. That consolidation is the future for Disney. For anyone working in Hollywood now, for anyone working at Disney, Paramount, Warner Bros. Discovery, any of these big companies, they face an almost impossible employment market as these studios continue to lay off people and put them into a workforce that's already saturated with tons of people that can't get jobs anymore. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.